They were not fighters, they never had been. Their world was soft and kind, the gravity was light, the weather was gentle. The biggest animal on their planet was no larger than a small dog. For thousands of years they lived in peace. They made art. They wrote poems. They traded with other species across the stars. They never needed armies or weapons. But now everything was about to end. Ambassador stood at the large window of the orbital station. His 4 eyes looked out at the stars, but he could not see the stars anymore. Huge dark ships blocked them out. There were hundreds of these ships. They were ugly and covered with weapons. They belonged to the... They were the opposite of they were hunters. They were killers. They moved from planet to planet, taking everything. They took the water. They took the minerals. They took the people. No one knew what happened to the people they took. No one wanted to know. His hands were shaking. His thin body felt cold even though the station was warm. Next to him stood his aide, a young named Porin. Porin was shaking too. "How long do we have?" asked. His voice was quiet. 3 days, Porin said. "Maybe 4. Then they will start bombing our cities." 3 days. That was all the time his people had left. Millions of lived on the planet below. Children were playing in parks right now. Families were eating dinner together. They did not know that death was floating above them in the sky. "We sent messages to the Galactic Council," Porin said. "We asked for help." "And what did they say?" Porin looked down at the floor. "They said they are sorry. They said they cannot risk a war with the... They said they will remember us." Remember us. Those words hit like a punch. The Great Galactic Council, with all their ships and soldiers, would not help. They would watch the die and then they would write sad poems about it. "There is no one else?" asked. Porin was quiet for a moment, then he spoke very softly. "There is one other option, but it is forbidden." "Tell me." "The old emergency channel. The one the Council sealed 300 years ago. It goes to the..." Felt his heart's beat faster. Every species in the galaxy knew about the... It was a terrible place. The gravity was crushing. The weather was violent. The planet was full of predators and poison and disease. And somehow life had survived there. Not just survived. It had grown strong. It had grown dangerous. The humans had seen pictures of them. They looked almost normal from the outside. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But their bodies were made of dense muscle and heavy bone. They could survive injuries that would kill any other species. They could eat things that were poisonous to everyone else. They could run for hours without stopping. They could go days without water. They were, in every way, built for survival. The galaxy had been afraid of them from the first moment they reached the stars. The Council had placed limits on them. They could not expand beyond certain borders. They could not build certain weapons. They were watched and controlled and feared. "If we call them," said slowly, "we would be inviting monsters to save us from monsters." "Yes," Porin agreed, "but they will definitely kill us. The humans, maybe they will help." Looked back at the dark ships in the sky. He thought about the children on the planet below. He thought about his own daughter, only 12 years old, who dreamed of becoming an artist. "Send the signal," he said. The message went out across the stars. It was a simple cry for help. It said that they were dying and that no one would help them. It asked if anyone was listening. It asked if anyone cared. 47 light-years away, the signal reached a human ship called the Indomitable. It was a warship, one of the largest in the Earth fleet. Its hull was covered in scars from old battles. Its weapons could crack moons in half. On the bridge, a young woman named was watching her screens. She was the communications officer. Her job was usually boring. Most days, nothing happened. But today, her screen suddenly turned red with an alert she had never seen before. "What is this?" she whispered to herself. She listened to the message. She heard the fear in the alien voice. She heard the desperation. And she felt something stir in her chest, something human. She pressed a button on her console. "Admiral, please come to the bridge. We have something important." Admiral arrived 2 minutes later. He was 63 years old. His hair was gray and his face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and his back was straight. He had served in the military for 40 years. He had seen things that would break most people. "What is it, Lieutenant?" he asked. Played the message for him. They both listened in silence. When it was over, did not speak for a long time. He just stood there, looking at the stars on the main screen. "They called us," he finally said. "After all these years of being told we are monsters, someone finally called us for help. Sir, we do not know anything about this situation. It could be a trap. It could be. It could be people dying." Lieutenant turned to face her. "How many ships can we gather? If we send out a call to all nearby vessels, maybe 300 in 3 days." Nodded slowly. "Do it. Tell every ship that Earth remembers what it feels like to stand alone. Tell them we have a chance to be something more than monsters." Felt tears in her eyes, but she blinked them away. "Yes, sir." The call went out, and across human space, ships began to move. Far away, Ambassador waited. He did not know if anyone had heard his message. He did not know if anyone would come. All he could do was watch the dark ships in the sky and pray that he had not doomed his people to something even worse than the. But deep in his heart, a tiny spark of hope refused to die. Someone was coming. The call went out, and humanity answered. From every corner of human space, ships began to move. They came from Earth, still the heart of human civilization. They came from Mars, where the red planet had become a world of factories and shipyards. They came from the asteroid belt, where miners worked in the cold darkness between worlds. They came from distant colonies that most people had forgotten existed. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched his fleet grow. Every hour more ships arrived. Warships with heavy armor and powerful guns. Carriers full of small fighter craft. Supply ships loaded with food and medicine and ammunition. Even civilian vessels showed up, their captains asking how they could help. 312 military ships confirmed, reported Lieutenant. And the number keeps growing. Sir, the merchant ships are asking to join. The research vessels too. Everyone wants to be part of this. Felt something warm in his old heart. For 300 years, humanity had been told they were dangerous. They had been locked behind borders like animals in a cage. Other species looked at them with fear and disgust, but humans had never stopped being human. They had never stopped caring about others. They had just been waiting for a chance to prove it. "Tell the civilian ships to stay behind the main fleet," said. "They can help with rescue operations after the battle, but I will not send untrained people into a fight." "Yes, sir." On the assault carrier Horizon's Edge, Captain watched her crew prepare for war. She was 34 years old, young for a captain, but she had earned her rank. 2 years ago, she had saved an entire colony when their power plant almost exploded. She had walked into a room full of radiation and fixed the problem with her own hands. The doctors said she should have died. She did not. That was what it meant to be Her executive officer commander walked up beside her. He was older than her, with gray at his temples and a scar on his chin. He had served in the military for 20 years. "The crew is ready," he said. "But I have to ask, Captain, do you really think this is a good idea? We do not know these, we do not owe them anything." Looked at him. "When humans first reached the stars, we asked the galaxy for friendship. Do you know what they gave us? Fear, sanctions, borders we could not cross. They treated us like a disease." "I remember," said quietly. "Now someone is asking us for help. For the first time in 300 years, someone looked at us and saw something other than monsters." Turned back to the window where she could see the fleet gathering. "I do not know if this is smart, but I know it is right." Was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. "Then we will make sure we do it well." In the hangar bay of the Horizon's Edge, Marine Sergeant was checking her equipment. Her rifle was clean and loaded. Her armor was sealed and powered. Her helmet sat on the bench beside her, waiting. Around her, dozens of other Marines were doing the same thing. They were big men and women, all of them, dense with muscle, heavy with bone. Their bodies had been built by a planet that tried to kill everything on it. Private, a young soldier on his first real mission, sat down next to her. "Sergeant, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "They call us. They say we come from a Class 12 planet. What does that mean exactly?" Smiled, but there was no humor in it. "It means our planet is one of the most dangerous in the known galaxy. High gravity, extreme weather, predators everywhere, diseases that would wipe out other species in days." She picked up her helmet and looked at her reflection in the dark visor. "We evolved to survive all of that. We are stronger than most species. We heal faster. We can keep going when our bodies should have given up." "That sounds good," said Uncertain. "It depends on who you ask. The galaxy looks at us and sees killers, monsters. They think we are too dangerous to trust." Put on her helmet and stood up. "Today, we get to show them what we really are." "What is that?" "Protectors." Back on the Indomitable, Admiral called a meeting with all the ship captains. Their faces appeared on screens around the conference room. There were hundreds of them, young faces and old faces, scared faces and determined faces. "You have all seen the intelligence reports," said. "They do not take prisoners, they do not negotiate, they harvest worlds, they take the people, the resources, everything. Then they move on." He let those words sit in the air for a moment. "They are not warriors, they have no army, they have no weapons that can fight the—" When they called for help, the Galactic Council told them to die quietly. His voice grew harder. "We are going to give a different answer." Captain spoke up. "What are our rules of engagement, Admiral?" "Simple: protect the, stop the, use whatever force is necessary." Looked around at all the faces on the screens. "I will not lie to you. This will be bloody. Some of us will not come home. But I believe this is what we were meant to do, not conquer, not destroy, but protect." The captains were silent. Then one by one they began to nod. "We jump in 6 hours," said. "Get your people ready." The screens went dark. Stood alone in the conference room looking out at the stars. He thought about his daughter back on Earth. He thought about his who he might never see again. Then he straightened his back and walked out to join his crew. In her small cabin, Lieutenant sat at her desk and wrote a letter home. She did not know if she would survive the coming battle, but she wanted her family to know why she had gone. "We spent 300 years being told we were monsters," she wrote. "Today we get to prove them wrong. I am scared, but I am also proud. This is what humans do. We help each other. And now we get to help someone else." She sealed the letter and put it in her drawer. Then she went back to the bridge. The fleet was ready. In 6 hours they would jump to space. In 6 hours, the galaxy would learn what could do. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace like thunder from a clear sky. One moment the space around Prime was quiet. The ships floated in their positions, waiting to begin their harvest. Then reality itself seemed to tear open, and hundreds of ships appeared where there had been nothing. On the orbital station, Ambassador was trying to eat. He had not slept in 2 days. His eyes were red and tired. His hand still shook every time he looked at the fleet through the window. Then the alarm started screaming. "What is happening?" Jumped to his feet, food falling to the floor. His aide Porin ran to the sensors. His 4 eyes went wide. Ships, hundreds of ships, they just appeared in the system. "More." "No, no, Ambassador." Porin's voice was shaking, but this time it was not from fear. "These ships, they are not like anything I have seen before. They are angular, heavy, covered in weapons." His hearts began to beat faster. The humans, they came, they actually came. He ran to the window and looked out. The new ships were spreading across space like a wall between the planet and the fleet. They were ugly ships, built for war, not beauty. But two, they were the most beautiful things he had ever seen. A message came through the communication system. It was in a strange language, but the computer translated it quickly. "This is Admiral of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your distress signal. We are here to help." Grabbed the microphone with shaking hands. "Why?" he asked. It was the only word he could think of. "Why did you come?" There was a pause. Then the human admiral answered, "Because you asked, and because no one should face death alone." On the other side of the system, the fleet commander was not happy. Was old for he had conquered more than 100 worlds. He had killed millions of beings with his own claws. He had never known fear in his life. But as he looked at the sensor readings, something cold touched his spine. "What are those ships?" he demanded. His officer checked the data. "Unknown design, Commander. The power readings are very high. Their armor appears extremely thick, and their weapons." "What about their weapons?" "They have mass drivers large enough to crack small moons, Commander." Stared at the screen. The new ships were moving into attack formation. They were not running. They were not hiding. They were coming straight at him. "Open a channel," ordered. "Tell them to leave or be destroyed." The message went out. The response came back almost immediately, but it was not words. Instead, the human ships began launching smaller craft. Hundreds of fighters poured out of the carriers, forming swarms around the larger vessels. "They are not leaving," the officer said, stating the obvious. "Then we will destroy them," leaned forward in his command chair. "All ships, attack formation, kill them all." The Battle of Prime began. Captain stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the enemy fleet move toward them. Her hands were steady on the command console. Her voice was calm. "All squadrons launch," she ordered. "Target the lead ships. Fire at will." The first shots of the battle were fired by the human mass drivers. These were not normal guns. They had been built to break apart asteroids. They fired chunks of metal at speeds that were hard to believe. When those chunks hit the shields broke like glass. Watched in shock as his forward ships began to explode. "How is this possible? Our shields should hold against." Another explosion cut off his words, then another. The humans were not just fighting back. They were tearing his fleet apart. "Return fire," screamed. "All weapons return fire." The ships answered with everything they had. Energy beams and missiles flew toward the human fleet. Some of them hit. Fire bloomed on the hulls of several human ships. But the human ships did not die. On the Indomitable, Admiral felt his ship shake as an enemy beam hit the hull. Alarms blared. Crew members shouted damage reports. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Lieutenant called out. "Sealing now, no casualties." Nodded. Human ships were built tough. They had to be. Humans came from a world where everything tried to kill them. Their ships reflected that. Thick armor, redundant systems, built to take damage and keep fighting. "Return fire," ordered. "Show them what can do." The Indomitable's main guns roared. A cruiser in front of them broke in half, its hull ripped open by the force of the impact. Across the battlefield, the story was the same. Human ships were faster, tougher, and hit harder than anything they had ever faced. They had won 100 wars by being the biggest and the strongest, but they had never fought before. In the fighter squadrons, Lieutenant led her wing through the chaos. Her small ship danced between enemy fire, moving in ways that should have been impossible. Human pilots could handle forces that would kill other species. They could turn and spin and dive without passing out. It gave them an edge that they could not match. "Fox 2" called out as she fired a missile. It streaked across space and hit a fighter, turning it into a ball of fire. "Target down, moving to next." On the station, Ambassador watched the battle with wide eyes. He had expected the humans to be strong, but this was something else. They fought like they were born for it. They moved like a single creature with hundreds of bodies, and they were winning. By the ancestors, Porin whispered beside him. We summoned warriors from hell. No, said softly. We summoned protectors from hell. There is a difference. The battle raged for 3 hours. By the end, half of the fleet was destroyed or disabled. The rest were trying to run. But the human ships chased them, cutting off their escape, destroying any ship that refused to surrender. Commander sat in his command chair on his damaged flagship. Around him, his bridge was on fire. Most of his officers were dead. His fleet was broken. An officer crawled over to him, blood running down his face. Commander, what are these creatures? Thought about the question. He had conquered 100 worlds. He had never lost. And now, in a single day, everything he knew had been proven wrong. They are humans, he said quietly, and we made a terrible mistake coming here. His flagship shook as another hit landed on the hull. The lights went out. In the darkness, finally understood what it felt like to be prey. The Battle of Prime was almost over. The humans had won. Victory always comes with a price. The humans were learning that lesson again. While the main battle raged in space, a group of ships had tried something desperate. They had sent boarding parties to the orbital station. If they could not win the battle, they would take hostages. They would force the humans to back down or watch innocent people die. Sargent was not going to let that happen. The assault shuttle hit the station's docking bay with a hard thump. Before the doors were even fully open, was moving. Her rifle was up, her eyes scanning every shadow. Go, 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 she shouted. Her squad poured out behind her. Private was right on her shoulder. Corporal took the left flank. 6 other Marines spread out to cover the rest of the bay. The docking area was a mess. Emergency lights flashed red. Smoke filled the air. Somewhere in the distance could hear screaming. They went that way, said, pointing toward a corridor. I can see tracks in the dust. Then that is where we go. Checked her rifle one more time. Remember, they are fragile. One stray bullet could kill them. Watch your shots. The squad moved into the corridor. It was dark and narrow, perfect for an ambush. Felt her heart beating faster, but she kept her breathing steady. Fear was normal. Fear kept you alive. The trick was not to let it control you. They found the first around a corner. It was big, at least 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plates. It held a weapon that crackled with blue energy, and it was standing over the body of a dead. Did not hesitate. She fired 3 shots. The rounds hit in the chest, punching through its armor. The creature fell backward, dead before it hit the ground. Contact, shouted. More were coming from a side passage. The corridor exploded into chaos. Energy beams flashed through the air. Bullets flew in the other direction. The noise was deafening. One Marine went down with a burn on his leg. Another took a hit to the shoulder but kept firing. Stepped forward, her weapon blazing. A charged at her, claws raised. She shot it twice in the head. It fell at her feet. Then an energy beam caught her in the shoulder. She spun and fell, crashing against the wall. Her armor had taken most of the hit, but could see blood seeping through the cracks. Corporal rushed to her side. I am fine, said through gritted teeth. The armor held mostly. Kept firing as she moved to cover them. The last 2 fell under a rain of bullets. Then the corridor was quiet. How bad? Asked, kneeling beside. Bad enough to hurt, not bad enough to stop me. Pushed herself up with her good arm. There are more of them ahead. I can hear them. Looked at her squad. They were all tired. Some of them were wounded, but none of them were quitting. Then we keep moving, she said. In space, the battle was reaching its final stage. Most of the fleet was destroyed, but Commander's flagship was still alive and it was trying to run. If it escaped, it would call for reinforcements. More would come. The war would continue. Admiral watched the flagship on his tactical display. It was limping toward the edge of the system, trailing smoke and debris. His own ship had taken damage too, but the Indomitable was still fighting. Can we catch it? He asked. Lieutenant checked her console. "The Horizon's Edge is in position, sir. Captain says she can intercept, but her ship has taken heavy damage if she engages." "I know," closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about all the letters he would have to write, all the families he would have to notify. War was never just about winning. It was about what you were willing to lose. "Tell Captain to intercept," he said finally, "and tell her to come home." On the Horizon's Edge, Captain received the order. She looked around her bridge. Half of her crew was injured. Smoke hung in the air. One of the main screens was cracked and dark. "You heard the Admiral," she said. "Set intercept course, all weapons ready." Commander stepped up beside her. Blood was running down his face from a cut on his forehead. "Captain, our shields are down to 20%. Our main engine is damaged. If we take another direct hit—" "I know," his voice was calm. "But if that ship escapes, everything we did today means nothing. More will come, the will die." Was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. "Then we make sure it does not escape." The Horizon's Edge surged forward. Behind it, fighter squadrons formed a wall, blocking any escape route. Ahead's flagship fired everything it had left. The carrier shook as hits landed on its hull. Alarms screamed. More crew members fell, but stood firm at her command post, directing weapons fire with steady hands. "Target the engines," she ordered. "If we cannot destroy it, we cripple it." The mass drivers roared. Heavy rounds slammed into the flagship, tearing through its already damaged armor. Explosions bloomed along its length. Its engines flickered and died. "Target disabled," reported from the Indomitable. "The flagship is dead in space." Let out a breath she did not know she had been holding. Around her, the crew began to cheer. They had won. Against all odds, they had won. But the cheering stopped when the damage reports came in. 37 crew members dead, dozens more injured. The Horizon's Edge was barely holding together. "Get the wounded to medical," said quietly, "and prepare a list of the fallen. We will remember every one of them." On the orbital station, Sergeant's squad had fought their way to the main control room. The last of the boarders were dead. Around them, surviving huddled against the walls, shaking with fear. Took off her helmet. They stared at her with wide eyes. They had heard stories about humans, monsters from a death world, creatures too dangerous to trust. But did not look like a monster. She looked tired, she looked wounded, she looked human. "It is over," she said gently. "You are safe now." One of a small female with silver skin, stepped forward slowly. "You came for us," she whispered. "You did not even know us and you came." Thought about her squad. She thought about the friends she had lost. She thought about all the blood and pain of the past few hours. "That is what we do," she said simply. "We protect people." The female reached out with a trembling hand and touched his arm. Her touch was light, almost afraid, but her eyes were full of wonder. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for being the kind of monsters you are." Smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "You are welcome." The battle was over. They were saved, but the war for understanding was just beginning. The guns had stopped firing. The explosions had faded. Silence fell over space, broken only by the quiet hum of ship engines and the soft beeping of medical equipment. Admiral stood in the observation deck of the Indomitable, looking out at the stars. Below him, Prime turned slowly, blue and green and alive. Cities sparkled on the night side. Ships moved in orbit, carrying supplies and rescue teams. 43 human ships had been destroyed or damaged beyond repair. 2,117 humans had died. They would never go home. They would never see their families again. They had given everything for strangers they had never met. Lieutenant walked up beside him. "Admiral, the ambassador is requesting to come aboard. He wants to thank you in person." Nodded slowly. "Let him come." Ambassador arrived an hour later. He was smaller than had expected, maybe 5 feet tall. His body was thin and fragile. His skin was pale blue, smooth like paper. His 4 eyes moved constantly, looking at everything around him. When he saw, he stopped. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Why? Finally asked. It was the same question he had asked when the fleet first arrived. You lost ships. You lost people. You owed us nothing. Why did you come? Thought about the question. He thought about all the years humanity had spent in isolation. He thought about the fear in other species' eyes whenever they looked at humans. He thought about his, growing up in a galaxy that called them monsters. 300 years ago, said slowly, when humans first reached the stars, we wanted to be friends. We wanted to explore together, trade together, build together. But the galaxy looked at us and saw only danger. They locked us behind borders. They told us we were too violent, too aggressive, too strong to be trusted. He turned to face directly. Maybe they were right to be afraid. We come from a world that tried to kill us every day. We evolved to fight, to survive, to never give up. That makes us dangerous. But prompted. But being dangerous does not make us evil. Having strength does not mean we must use it to harm. Gestured at the planet below. You called for help. You trusted us when no one else would. We came because that trust deserved an answer. Was quiet for a long time. Then he did something that surprised everyone watching. He bowed deeply, touching his forehead to his clasped hands. On behalf of all, he said, I thank you, not just for saving us, but for showing us what kind of monsters you truly are. On the horizon's edge, Captain was watching the repairs. Her ship looked terrible. Burn marks covered the hull. Whole sections were missing. It would take months to fix everything. But the ship had survived. Most of her crew had survived. That was what mattered. Commander walked up beside her. His head was bandaged, but he was smiling. We just received a message from the government, he said. They want to form an alliance with humanity, not out of fear, but out of respect. Felt something warm spread through her chest. An alliance. Yes, they say we showed them that strength can be used for protection, not just destruction. They want to learn from us. Paused. They are not the only ones. Other species have been watching the battle broadcasts. They are reconsidering their opinions of humanity. Looked out at the stars. For 300 years, humans had been alone, feared, hated. Now, for the first time, someone was reaching out in friendship. Tell them we accept, she said softly. Tell them humanity is ready to be part of the galaxy again. On the orbital station, Sargent sat in a quiet corner cleaning her rifle. Her squad was resting nearby. Some of them were bandaged. All of them were exhausted, but they were alive. Private sat down next to her. Sergeant, can I ask you something? You always do, said with a small smile. Back on the station when we were fighting, were you scared? Thought about the question. She remembered the chaos of the battle, the screaming, the blood, the moment when Corporal went down and thought she might lose another friend. Yes, she admitted. I was scared. Only a fool would not be scared in a situation like that. But you kept fighting. That is what courage is. Finished cleaning her rifle and set it aside. Being brave does not mean you have no fear. It means you do what needs to be done even when you are afraid. Nodded slowly. He looked out the window at the planet below. Do you think the galaxy will see us differently now? Do you think they will stop calling us monsters? Some will, some will not, shrugged. But we did not fight today to change their minds. We fought because it was the right thing to do. If they understand us better because of it, that is a bonus. If they do not, we still know who we are. And who are we? Smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. We are humans. We come from a planet that tried to kill us every single day. And we survived. Not just survived. We became strong. We became brave. We became people who protect the weak, even when the weak are strangers from the other side of the galaxy. She stood up and looked at her squad. They were watching her now, listening. The galaxy can call us whatever it wants, she said. Monsters, aberrations. But today we showed them what those words really mean. They mean we fight for others. They mean we never give up. They mean we are exactly what the galaxy needs, even if they did not know it. The Marines nodded. Some of them even smiled. Far away, on planets across the galaxy, other species were watching. They had seen the broadcasts of the battle. They had seen humans die for strangers. They had seen something they never expected to see from. They had seen compassion. Not all of them changed their minds. Fear is hard to overcome, and prejudice dies slowly. But some of them started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they had been wrong about humanity. On the Indomitable, Admiral prepared his fleet for the long journey home. Repair crews worked around the clock. Medical teams treated the wounded. Lists of the dead were prepared with care and respect. Before they left, made one final broadcast. It went out to every ship in the fleet, and also to the below. Today we proved something, he said. Not to the galaxy, but to ourselves. We proved that we can be more than what we were born as. We are stronger and tougher than most species in the galaxy. That power could be used to conquer. It could be used to destroy. But today, we chose to use it to protect. He paused, thinking of all the lives lost, all the sacrifices made. 2,117 humans gave their lives today. They died for people they never met, on a world they never knew. They died because someone called for help and they answered. That is who we are. That is who we choose to be. The fleet began to move. One by one the ships turned toward home, wounded but proud, broken but undefeated. Ambassador watched them go from the observation deck of the station. Beside him, his aide Porin was crying softly. "We called for monsters," Porin whispered, and heroes answered. Nodded slowly. "Perhaps," he said, "they are both. Perhaps that is what makes them human." The last ship disappeared into hyperspace. The stars returned to their normal brightness. And on Prime, a new story began to be told. It was the story of the day the sky was dark with enemy ships, the day death came for them all, and the day that monsters from across the galaxy to save strangers. It was the story of humanity. And it was only the beginning.